Well, hello. Today we're going to be tying one of the most recent personal favorite flies that I have been using, and it's these emergers that are up here in this top corner. I'll also get you the closer look on that too. But that's what we'll be tying today. The hooks that I normally tie them on are these Fulling Mill FM 5005s, whatever the number means on that one. That's what I normally use on a size 16, and they're a heavy wire, so they like to sink rather fast. They're not a light wire, so it goes great with being the emerger, that the little bit of foam that I use to suspend the fly up off the bottom also counteracts with this little bit of weight that's extra in the hook. I'll also be using a little bit of dubbing in and around that foam. We'll be using Danville 70 denier light olive, I want to say that's what that is, and also some Semperfly micro glint tinsel over here. Oh, and you're gonna need a Sharpie and probably a razor blade to cut your foam down into manageable pieces like so. This one is cut a little bit thicker because I will be tying this fly on a size 10 to make it easier for everyone to see. And most of the fly tying videos that I have on my channel are just the flies that I use consistently and often, and they often work. I don't try to make videos of flies that do not work or I have only used once. So a lot of the flies I have videos of are all consistently good catchers and relatively simple to tie. Quite a few of them are. Let's start out by putting the hook in the vise. Starting our nice little thread body up here at the front, or not, partial thread body fly is what it is. Clip this little tag end off like so, and then I'm going to immediately get my tinsel and tie it in and start running it back, right on back to just about there. I'm going to make my way back up and trim that, and then we're going to work our way back to the back, creating a nice light olive thread body and not trying to bulk up too much, as in bulking it up throughout the whole thing. We need to stay thin on one end of this down by the hook bar bend. We stay thin there and we add more thread this direction up here towards the hook eye, kind of giving it like a silhouette of some sort of fly or a bug. And how you do that is you go back like 2/3 of the way with your thread and then come back to the front, and then you go back like half the distance like so, and then you go back to the front, and then we're going to go all the way to the back, right where the tip of the bend is there. And then we're going to take that Sharpie that I told you were going to need earlier, and we're going to just make a nice little, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of an inch long black spot on that light thread. And then we're going to wrap that up back up towards the hook eye, making segments in this body. We're going to wrap this other thread the opposite direction here. I mean the same direction, geez. Kind of going in between the black segments that you just put on there with the other thread. I'm going to trim that off, and then we're going to get our chunk of foam. We're going to work our thread back just a little bit away from that eye, and then we want to tie it in there, go a couple times around and stretching it as you're doing that. to thin it. And then we'll clip that there with the scissors, giving us this little body. And then we'll take our black dubbing, just a very small pinch of this black dubbing. Doesn't take much to do a lot of work. And just make a nice little dubbing noodle on that thread. And then we're going to work this in there, in front and then behind, like so. And then we're going to whip finish that. Super simple emerger pattern right there. And works great, especially when you have it tied on that size 16 to 18, like a heavy wire, real small hook, gap hook. The other day I got into some really good fish and a lot of good fish as in smaller ones, but at the same time I did get into a 19-inch brown that I'll put the video in right here just for your enjoyment. Beautiful little fish there on that emerger. Woo. Later, friend. Let's dance again. Good one. Good one right there. Is that a brown? Oh, it's just a beautiful rainbow, it looks like. Immediately regretting that. No, that's a brown trout. Immediately regretting that emerger it just took. I have to really wear this one out. That is a good fish. Good fish. Good fish. This little two-way rod's just buckled. Come on, now turn. Come on.
Look at that beauty. Oh man. The tiniest, ow, of emergers. Tiny, tiny, tiny. A little itty bitty emerger there. Wow. Whee! Well, let's see what this White River rod just landed for us. We got 12, 7, 19. Oh look, it had somebody else's stuff too. Easy there, big buddy. Look at that big, beautiful brown trout right there. Right, friend. Right down on the bottom down there, just hanging out. I hope that didn't mess up the audio too bad, sticking the camera underneath the water for you guys to see that fish part ways. Well, that's how I tie that emerger, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, because it really does the trick, especially when the fish are just barely starting to rise. Like, they're rising consistently in the river all the time, but they're not breaking the surface. They're just barely hitting just below the surface. And that's where these emergers are. That's why a lot of time if you're using a dry fly and it's directly on the surface, they'll just pass it. And they won't even go for it, or they'll come up and they'll swirl at it. Like, it's kind of an interesting thing. You have to be just below the surface to be in that pocket that they want you to be in. And that's where these emergers with that little bit of foam will help you get. So, thank you guys for watching, liking, and subscribing. Hopefully you find some other great content within my channel to watch.